These are 13 movies so catastrophic at the box office that some were literally yanked from theaters within days of release. We're not talking about films that simply underperformed. We're talking about disasters that bankrupted entire studios, ended legendary careers overnight, and lost hundreds of millions of dollars. Combined, these failures represent over $1.5 billion in adjusted losses. From the film that ended the auteur era to the one that grossed just $30 total, these are Hollywood's most spectacular financial catastrophes and the fascinating stories behind each one. The lowest-grossing film in American box office history earned exactly $30 during its theatrical run, a 2006 thriller called Zyzzyx Road. 6 tickets sold at $5 each, but here's where it gets interesting. The producer actually refunded $10 to makeup artist Sheila Moore and her friend, bringing the unofficial gross down to just $20. Before anyone wonders how something like this is even possible, there's an important asterisk. This wasn't a failure in the traditional sense, it was a deliberate strategy. Screen Actors Guild rules required a theatrical release for low-budget films under $2.5 million to qualify for reduced actor rates, and producer Leo Grillo wanted foreign distribution first, but needed to fulfill his SAG obligations. His solution was elegant in its absurdity. He rented a single theater in Dallas for $1,000 and played the film once a day at noon for 6 days. Katherine Heigl starred in the film while rising to fame on Grey's Anatomy alongside Tom Sizemore. Foreign markets across 23 countries eventually brought in approximately $368,000. The record for lowest American gross stands, but the whole thing was intentional rather than an organic disaster. Plenty of films genuinely tried to succeed and failed spectacularly, and those are worth examining. FIFA's 2014 Vanity project might be the most embarrassing theatrical release in modern history. A propaganda film about the history of soccer's governing body that FIFA itself funded at approximately 90% of the $25 to $32 million budget. American theaters saw an opening weekend gross of $918 total, and that's not $918,000, that's $918. Friday brought $319, Saturday dropped to $288, and Sunday fell to $284. The best-performing theater in the country, Lemmel's NoHo 7 in North Hollywood, brought in $249, while Film Bar in Phoenix sold exactly 1 ticket for $9. The timing proved catastrophic because the film released the exact same week the FIFA corruption scandal broke and officials found themselves in handcuffs. Sepp Blatter resigned as 14 soccer officials faced indictments, and Tim Roth, who played Blatter, later admitted he only took the role for the money and asked during production where all the corruption was in the script. Rotten Tomatoes awarded it 0%, a rare complete shutout, and The Guardian called it cinematic excrement. Director Frederick Obertam was devastated, stating that now he was seen as bad as the guy who brought AIDS to Africa or caused the financial crisis. Not a single film has come from him since. A record that still stands today belongs to this 2012 children's film, the worst wide-release opening in box office history, and most people have never even heard of it. Producer Ken Visselman served as the American marketing executive for Teletubbies and Thomas & Friends before sinking $20 million into production and another $40 million into marketing, totaling $60 million. His confidence was extraordinary, and he publicly stated that if you're a mother and don't know about his movie, then he'd really screwed up. He screwed up. Opening weekend brought in just $443,901 across 2,160 theaters, a per-theater average of $206 that broke the previous record held by Delgo. Wednesday's opening proved even more dire at $102,564, with a per-theater average of just $47. Interactive elements encouraged children to participate, but kids didn't respond. A 7-year-old reviewer told the New York Times it was for babies, and children in screenings stopped participating altogether, running up and down the aisles instead. Theater count plummeted from 2,160 to just 281 by the second weekend, an 87% reduction. Visselman claimed scripts existed for sequels called The Big Family Adventure and The Big Holiday Adventure, but neither was ever made. the film became a cautionary tale about overconfidence in children's entertainment. For 4 years before Oogieloves took the crown, Delgo held the record for worst wide release opening. An astonishing 10 years went into developing this 2008 animated fantasy, with pre-production starting in 1998 and completion not arriving until 2008. Atlanta-based Fathom Studios made the entire thing outside Hollywood on a $40 million budget, but a corporate reshuffle resulted in a wide opening with absolutely no marketing campaign. The debut across 2,160 theaters brought $511,920, a per-theater average of just $237 that works out to approximately 2 viewers per screening. Total worldwide gross reached only $694,782, creating an estimated loss of $46 million. Critics showed no mercy, with Rotten Tomatoes giving it 12% and reviews calling it derivative of superior fantasy films with bad video game-level animation. 1 week after release, theaters pulled the film entirely. An interesting footnote emerged when Mark Adler's team later sued James Cameron, alleging that Avatar copied character designs from Delgo, though the suit failed. Eddie Murphy's 2002 sci-fi comedy may hold the dubious distinction of losing the highest percentage of its production budget in Hollywood history. $100 million went into making this film, including $20 million in reshoots, and opening weekend brought in just $2.18 million in 2,320 theaters. At the time, that represented the worst opening on record for a movie playing in over 2,000 theaters. The second weekend dropped another 70.8%, and total worldwide gross reached only $7.1 million, a 96% loss. What makes this story even more painful is that the film was completed in 2000 but shelved for over 2 years. When Ain't It Cool News leaked a negative review of an unfinished work print in January 2001, Castle Rock commissioned those costly reshoots that Murphy reportedly partially financed himself. Troubles plagued the production from the start, with Murphy reportedly refusing to block shots, only coming to set to shoot scenes then leaving, and not learning his lines until the day of shooting. Director Ron Underwood later admitted the film was not very good and that he knew they didn't have the kind of wit and fun he would have wanted. Barbara Walters asked Murphy about the film, and he responded that he knew 2 or 3 people that liked it. When his 8-year-old son watched a screening, the film went silent at the end, and the child offered one word: corny. Severe aftermath followed, with Castle Rock Entertainment's physical production departments closing and 16 of 46 employees fired. Murphy entered a significant career slump and later admitted he almost quit acting entirely. The 2003 crime-comedy romance starring Ben Affleck and Jennifer Lopez became synonymous with Hollywood disaster, earning the rare D- cinema score among the worst audience ratings ever recorded. Initial budget reports placed the number at $54 million, but the figure was later revealed as $75.6 million when Revolution Studios' library sold. Opening weekend brought in $3.75 million in 2,215 theaters, and the second weekend plummeted 81.9%, a record-breaking decline. Sony dumped it straight to video in most international markets, with worldwide gross reaching only $7.27 million. The Bennifer phenomenon backfired catastrophically because Affleck and Lopez began dating during production while Lopez was still married to Chris Judd, and their engagement announcement created a backlash that studios failed to anticipate. Executives rewrote the original black comedy as a romantic comedy to capitalize on Bennifer mania, a miscalculation of historic proportions. Rotten Tomatoes gave it 6%, and 6 Razzie Awards followed, including Worst Picture, with a later win for Worst Comedy of our first 25 years. When Starz eventually aired the film, their publicity head admitted that if they promoted it like a good film, their credibility would be shot. Director Martin Brest, previously acclaimed for Beverly Hills Cop, Midnight Run, and the Oscar-nominated Scent of a Woman, never directed another film. Affleck took a different lesson from The Wreckage, later crediting the failure for pushing him toward directing, which turned out to be the real love of his professional life. One of Hollywood's most dramatic examples of production chaos transforming a modest project into a mega loss is the 2001 romantic comedy Town and Country, $14 million was the original budget for the spec script, which grew to $40 to $44 million after stars were attached, then ballooned to $90 to $105 million by completion, a 5 times increase. Warren Beatty received $10 million upfront, and screenwriter Buck Henry earned $3 million for rewrites, enough to buy a new home, as he put it. 12 separate release date changes occurred over nearly 3 years. Principal photography began June 8, 1998, with a target wrap date of fall 1998. But actual completion didn't arrive until June 2000. Terrible test screenings prompted extensive reshoots, and opening weekend brought in just $3.03 million in 2,222 theaters, with total worldwide gross reaching only $10.4 million. Problems multiplied because the script wasn't finished when filming began and stars left for other commitments. Gary Shandling departed for What Planet Are You From, while Diane Keaton left to direct Hanging Up, and a full year passed before the cast reunited. Film canisters were stolen and ransomed, and actress Jenna Elfman's hair reportedly fell out during the troubled production. Warren Beatty did not appear on screen for 15 years after this film, effectively retiring until Rules Don't Apply in 2016. Director Peter Chelsam's career only survived because his next film, Serendipity, had already been completed before Town and Country released. The 1987 adventure comedy became so synonymous with failure that it entered popular culture as shorthand for disaster. Budget numbers ballooned from $28 to $30 million to $51 to $55 million, with half reportedly going to star salaries, as Warren Beatty and Dustin Hoffman each earned approximately $6 million. The average 1987 production budget sat at $17 million. Opening weekend brought in just $4.2 million, barely beating the low-budget horror film The Gate by $100,000, and total domestic gross reached only $14.3 million. Director Elaine May, then the only woman directing Hollywood studio films, shot 108 hours of rushes, 3 times typical for a comedy. 3 separate editing teams worked simultaneously, one each for Beatty, Hoffman, and May, and political tensions in North Africa complicated Moroccan filming during the PLO incidents and Achille Lauro hijacking. Roger Ebert awarded it half a star, calling it a truly dreadful film, and Gary Larson's Far Side comic depicted a video store in the underworld stocking only copies of Ishtar. Larson later apologized, having never actually seen the film. May never directed another feature for 38 years, though she continued screenwriting successfully, earning an Oscar nomination for Primary Colors. According to Sony hack emails, the film eventually clawed its way into the black by the early 2000s. Major directors, including Martin Scorsese, Quentin Tarantino, and Edgar Wright, have since become defenders of Ishtar. The 2011 animated film's failure extended far beyond financial loss because it ended an entire technology division at Disney and influenced company strategies for years. $150 million went into production, plus approximately $60 million in marketing, and opening weekend brought in just $6.91 million in 3,117 theaters, making it the 22nd lowest opening ever for a film in over 3,000 theaters. Total worldwide gross reached $39.23 million, with Disney reporting a write-down of $100 million. Motion capture animation created an uncanny valley effect that severely disturbed audiences, and 35-year-old Seth Green, voicing 11-year-old Milo, produced unsettling visuals. Disney executives viewed a rough cut and made a dramatic decision, closing Image Movers Digital, Robert Zemeckis' production company, before the film even released. That closure cost Disney $80 million in severances for over 450 employees, plus an additional $96 million write-down from an aborted Yellow Submarine remake. Rotten Tomatoes gave it 37%, and the film directly influenced Disney's decision to remove Of Mars from John Carter's title the following year, a change that contributed to that film's marketing failure. Disney's 2013 Western remake compounded the studio's mega-budget troubles just a year after John Carter. Production budget reached $215 to $250 million, plus $150 million in marketing, totaling approximately $375 to $400 million. The 5-day July 4th opening weekend brought in $48.9 million in 3,904 theaters, getting crushed by Despicable Me 2's $142.1 million opening. Total worldwide gross reached $260.5 million, and Disney CFO Jay Rasulo announced a write-down of $160 to $190 million. Breaking even required an estimated $650 million. Production had actually been canceled in August 2011 when Disney CEO Bob Iger and Chairman Rich Ross expressed budget concerns, only revived after director Gore Verbinski, producer Jerry Bruckheimer, and stars Johnny Depp and Armie Hammer each deferred 20% of their salaries. On-set disasters included weather-damaging sets, multiple stuntman injuries, one crew member drowning with Disney being fined $60,000 by Cal OSHA, and Johnny Depp falling from a horse and being trampled. Disney ended its long-term relationship with Jerry Bruckheimer after this string of expensive failures, and Gore Verbinski has not directed a major studio movie since. Disney president Alan Bergman later confirmed the losses were real, stating they did lose that much money on those movies. Disney's 2012 adaptation of Edgar Rice Burroughs' novels stands as the largest officially announced write-down in studio history. Production budget reached $306.6 million gross, $263.7 million net after British tax rebates, plus approximately $100 million in marketing, bringing total investment to $350 to $400 million. Opening weekend brought in $30.18 million in 3,749 theaters, with worldwide gross reaching $284.1 million. Just 11 days after release, Disney announced a $200 million write-down. $600 million represented the break-even point, a figure reached by only 63 films in history at that time. One of the worst marketing campaigns in movie history accompanied the release, with no merchandise displays at Disney stores, Target, theme parks, or Disney-owned media. Changing the title from John Carter of Mars to just John Carter conveyed nothing about the story. Disney Studios chairman Rich Ross resigned exactly 1 month after the loss announcement. Star Taylor Kitsch saw his leading man career effectively end when Battleship failed just 2 months later, relegating him to supporting roles. Co-star Lynn Collins reported her representation shelved her after the disaster, and director Andrew Stanton never directed another live-action feature. The Guinness World Record for largest box office loss belongs to this 1995 pirate adventure, which destroyed the studio that made it. Production budget reached $92 to $115 million, but distributor MGM was being sold during release, resulting in minimal marketing investment. Opening weekend brought in just $2.37 million, debuting at number 11 to 13 at the box office. Total worldwide gross reached $16 to $18.5 million, with the inflation-adjusted loss reaching approximately $147 million. Carolco Pictures filed Chapter 11 bankruptcy in November 1995, 1 month before the film even released, having previously thrived with Terminator 2, Basic Instinct, and Total Recall before excessive spending proved fatal. Disasters plagued the entire production. Michael Douglas dropped out after being paid $13 million, citing reduced screen time, and over a dozen A-list actors subsequently rejected the male lead role. Cinematographer Oliver Wood fell off a crane during the first week, breaking his leg. Director Renny Harlin wrote a memo to crew stating he didn't want big, he wanted huge, didn't want fast, wanted explosive. Harlin later admitted they begged to be let go, explaining that his wife, Gina Davis, was scared mindless about headlining this film. A pirate movie with a female lead felt suicidal to them, but they were contractually obligated. Pirates of the Caribbean revived the genre in 2003, but until then, Cutthroat Island had essentially ended it. Michael Cimino's 1980 Western remains the gold standard for Hollywood disasters, a film so catastrophic it ended an entire era of director-driven filmmaking and brought down a legendary studio. $44 million went into production, approximately $140 million adjusted for 2024. Ballooning from an initial approved budget of just $11.6 million. At one point, the production was spending $1 million per minute of running time. Opening weekend grossed $1.3 million, and total worldwide gross reached only $3.5 million, recovering less than 8% of the budget. 6 days into filming, the production was already 5 days behind schedule with $900,000 spent for just 1.5 minutes of usable footage. Cimino shot 220 hours of raw footage, delivered an initial cut of 5 hours and 25 minutes, and earned the nickname the Ayatollah from crew members. November 19, 1980 brought a devastating premiere, and when someone asked at intermission why no one was drinking champagne, Cimino's publicist replied, "Because they hate the movie, Michael." After just 1 week, United Artists pulled the film from theaters, an unprecedented move. A re-edited 149-minute version released in April 1981 also failed. Vincent Canby's New York Times review called it an unqualified disaster. Parent company Transamerica sold United Artists to MGM, effectively ending UA's existence as an independent studio. Cimino spent 5 years unable to get films made, earning him the label of the Howard Hughes of directors. Most significantly, the disaster marked the end of the auteur era as studio control returned and director-driven projects became rare for years afterward. Critical reappraisal has since arrived, with a standing ovation at the 2012 Venice Film Festival and a Criterion Collection release. Consistent patterns emerge across these 13 films from different eras. Budget overruns from unchecked directorial power or production chaos. Marketing failures ranging from non-existent campaigns to tone-deaf messaging. Bad timing from competing releases or external scandals. Studio regime changes that left orphaned projects without advocates. The career aftermath proves equally consistent, with directors Michael Cimino, Elaine May, Martin Brest, and Frédéric Aubertin never recovering their standing. United Artists and Carolco ceased to exist as independent entities. Executives lost their positions, and stars saw their leading roles vanish. Yet several of these films received later critical reappraisal. Spectacular commercial failure doesn't necessarily indicate artistic worthlessness, but it reliably ends careers nonetheless. Over $1.5 billion in adjusted money vanished with these disasters, which now serve as Hollywood's costliest cautionary tales about what happens when ambition, budgets, and reality diverge catastrophically.